You're listening to All Things 3D, where we talk about the world of fabricating, designing, and capturing in the third dimension.
All right. Where is this? This looks European.
Hello, Chris. Welcome again for joining us. This is a 360 panoramic that's actually not in its 360 mode, but it's using the V360 camera.
Look where it froze. I love it though. Your body looks small and your head looks big. It's pretty funny because it's got the fisheye. I think it's probably warped. Hi everybody. It's All Things 3D. Happy Friday. Good morning. It's today is July 17th, 2015. Week in review. I'm Chris.
And I'm Mike. And thank you for coming back, Chris. I've been missing you again.
Oh, I've been missing it.
Yeah, that shot was from Toledo, Spain. You weren't on, but a couple weeks ago, actually, gosh, we came back last week. But on July 4th, I did a TEDx talk with my wife, Siobhan. You're fully aware of the situation. She had a tumor. We used 3D printing and a lot of research to get a, no pun intended, cutting-edge process done to remove it. So we talked about that in Spain to a standing ovation. So very emotional for us. But yep. So hopefully it's a great conclusion. Supposedly next week it'll be released on the TED channel. So if you're interested in seeing the whole thing, it's about 17 minutes.
It's exciting, Mike. Exciting.
So this 360 plus a lot more when I get some time to upload them was my little 360 tour of some of the areas of Spain around Madrid that we visited. This was one of the more famous cathedrals, and the name escapes me. But that's not what we're here for, so let's move right into our first item. Chris, and I'll let you take the first one.
All right. Well, E3D, who brought us the V6 hot end, they brought us all their hot ends, really high-quality all-metal hot ends. They give us the Chimera, the all-metal hot ends, like the Volcano. Really famous company, has decided to launch on Kickstarter today the Big Box. And what is the Big Box? It's an affordable, hackable, open source 3D printer design, and they are going live on Kickstarter today. Really good price point. If you click the link for Kickstarter, it doesn't quite go live. It hasn't quite gone live yet, but it's supposed to go live later today. And you can go over and check it out. Some of the features about the Big Box. Not only is it made and manufactured by a reputable company, E3D, who has brought pretty much the standard high-quality all-metal hot end that pretty much is a standard, but it also has a huge build envelope of a 12 by 8 by 12 inch. It's got a 50 micron layer height, so pretty reasonable in the Z direction. So that's, I mean, it's somewhat standard, but and then it's also got some auto leveling features. Kind of, I imagine are similar to what the Lulzbot Mini has. It of course features the E3D V6 hot end, and then really kind of impressive is the price point. So if you go to their website, which is bigbox-3d.com, you can find out more. You can scroll down, you can kind of see the specs of the machine. So you can actually get a dual machine for 675 pounds, which, whatever that converts out to in dollars, so but right around $1,000, somewhere around there. You can get yourself a dual E3D machine with an enormous build envelope. So and it's got some really nifty features. I mean, cable management is definitely one of them, and like I said, that big build envelope, and it's
probably why it's called the Big Box, right?
The Big Box, I would imagine so, and it looks like a pretty sweet machine. They've got a gallery up here. It looks pretty similar to the Lulzbot Taz in a lot of ways. But here's some prints that are coming off of it. I thought this one is pretty spectacular. Wow. Yeah, so that's a dual. Yeah, I mean, like that's some pretty high quality prints they've got going on there. So pretty cool. I'm gonna head out and check it out on Kickstarter. Cool. Haven't decided whether or not I want to back it or But
What was the price again that they're launching?
I think it's going to be somewhere. It's under $1,000 for a single head extruder, and then they have a fully assembled machine. Let's see, which big box under features? Here we go. So they have a fully assembled machine for 875 pounds. So do the conversion. I don't know what that conversion is. You know what that is? To dollars.
What is it? Pounds?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the exchange rate is for that.
It's about that's about $1,367 is the top of the line. So about $1,400.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Factory assembled, and it's a 300 millimeter by 200 millimeter by 280 millimeter build envelope. So pretty enormous build envelope for $1,400 assembled. So
assembled, but if you wanted to get a kit, you can get a dual version for $675.
Yeah, which is sub $1,000. That's pretty.
And I kind of recommend, unless you need to have something very quickly, kits are nice because you learn a lot from building it. Now, obviously, you remember our experience with the Castle Clear, so hopefully they'll have better instructions when they launch it. But yeah, if you want to learn about it, it's always nice to get a kit if they do a good job in putting the instructions together. I guess we got mine together and it's functioning, so we learned a lot from it. So I learned a lot about Delta printers in the meantime.
Yeah,
right,
and
so
kits can be fun. Kits can be fun, but it all depends on which one it is and how good it is. Some kits I've heard really nasty horror stories, you know, when by the time you get it together, it doesn't work the way that was, you know, promised. It's never fun.
Exactly.
When you put all those hours and put something together. So make sure it's a good one.
Totally agree with you. All right, let's move on to my next item, and that is printing in sand. I thought this was kind of interesting because, you know, we do have plenty of sand out there.
Right.
This is the actual head behind. They use a CNC
no shortage
arm
of sand.
with some type of extrusion process, and we'll kind of go through the images. So it was the Advanced Architectural Group of Catalonia, and what they did is, I guess it was a joint project between Brazil, Croatia, Romania, and Taiwan, but they were looking at how that they can extrude sand, and here there's some examples here how they started in a small bottle, and they were figuring out what kind of binders in order, obviously, because sand by itself would kind of fall apart. So how they would go about doing that. Here's a little video of the process. Yeah, let's see, kind of showing in the mathematical process, and then what they found is that it kind of looked like a bunch of fractal-based ant hills when they got done, which I thought was kind of interesting. And so you can go ahead and look at that in the show notes later on. But here's the actual extrusion head, and then here's a exploded view of it. So they push the sand through it, and then they use the arm in order to create the objects, which isn't very clear because, as you can see here, they're more of an organic shape. So don't really know the whole purpose of it other than to create habitable structures using an organic process.
Is it infusing it with water? Is that what it's doing, or is it?
No, actually, they talk about it a little bit later. They use
binding agent.
Binding, right? Where was it at?
So similar to like what a Z-Corp machine does. You know, they use like a gypsum powder and then they glue it together.
Yep. But I think the important thing is the process they're using is to create an organic fractal-like construction. So instead of your standard rigid architecture, how can they do this organically and take advantage of what's happening in nature? And this is kind of the results of that, which I thought was kind of interesting. And I don't know if they're showing the actual print paths here, but I thought that was kind of an interesting technique. And here's the arm actually being used to extrude the sand to create these organic. But can you imagine living like something? It reminds me of something out of some sci-fi movie. But I thought that was a really neat little item there. All right, move on to the next one.
All right. Yeah, so obviously big in the news has been this whole thing going on with MakerBot. I don't know if you've covered this last week when I was
It
absent.
did not, so I'm glad you
Okay,
did.
so this is coming from Hackaday. This is one interpretation of it. So talking about the class action lawsuit against MakerBot. MakerBot has there's been a class action filed MakerBot for the faulty fifth generation heads. This article over at Hackaday, one of my favorite websites, obviously, has talked about, it goes into detail about kind of some court docs from Adafruit that are alleging that Stratasys rushed the fifth generation MakerBots into production, resulting in an avalanche of negative feedback, warranty claims, returns, and misled investors until the stock collapsed when the market was made aware of the issues. So it talks about how Stratasys had knowledge or was well aware that there was manufacturing defects, or it was not, all the kinks had not been worked out in the fifth generation machines, and that they sold faulty machines, well aware that they were not going to perform. So we'll see where this goes. You know, class actions are, man, it would be really hard to be in their shoes, because class actions can definitely they're dangerous for a lot of companies. They can take you out. So.
Well, you know, we've been talking about this ever since the MakerBot Generation 5 came out, and we've been following it in the news, and yes, there has been a loud voice talking about it. Now, to their credit, I guess, they put a lot of effort in trying to repair it. But yeah, so they put out a product that they knew had some issues just to get it out before other people put out their products. I don't think that's good. Also, as you're aware of, there was some patent processes that were owned by Stratasys that allowed them to create this design in their head, which means removable as well as sensing for the lack of filament. These were both patents by Stratasys and that they were obviously trying to incorporate very quickly to give them an edge. So it's very interesting where this is going. And as you know, MakerBot has really gotten a big black eye from this.
Yeah, and they've alienated a lot of the hacker community, kind of a lot of their.
Well, they did that earlier on, and we talked about that.
Yeah. So that's kind of, I think, it's kind of led to not a lot of people sympathizing. It says that the mean time before failure on the new $175 smart extruder is somewhere between 200 and 500 hours. So it's saying every dozen prints or so, you're going to have to replace the head on the fifth generation. So that's not a very long time for a $175 part, 200 to 500 hours. I mean, I'll print.
I don't know if you remember when I was at CES and I talked to, was it XYZ Printing? Their new printer also has a removable head, and we haven't gone back. I was hoping to get a version to test, but even though they promised me one, they've never given me one. But they also have a removable head, and that was one of the questions I posed them, and obviously you want to call it the sales or the rep wasn't aware of this, or at least identified that they weren't. So I'm wondering if they're not the only ones, and they said they're using a magnetic process. And as you know, I've got a case system that works on magnets, and I don't know if, you know, it works for what I'm doing, but I don't know if it would stand up to the rigor of the extrusion process. So I'd like to know if XYZ is having similar issues, so maybe we can look into that.
Yeah, I mean, the TAS, you know, over here, that has, here it is, printing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the TAS 5 all-metal hexagon nozzle that I have has printed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of hours so far. I mean, I've been printing with it since this nozzle I've had since March, and it prints every day, all day, and I haven't had any problems. But I only run ABS on this machine. My Lulzbot Mini, though, I've been running nylon, PLA, ABS, and had no issues with that whatsoever. And there obviously is. So, and they're removable, completely hot swappable, and they're really easy to hot swap.
Yeah, but But when you say removable, they're still secured by screws, if I remember correctly, right?
There's one Allen screw.
Well, but regardless,
Yeah.
to me, that still provides the tension and the security of having a screw keep it in place and not magnets or
Right. Oh, I hear what you're.
plastic
Yeah.
latch system.
Got it. Yep.
So, I mean, yes, it's simple to remove, and some people think that you should have a screwless system. I disagree. I think that they're there for a reason, and they apply force that you don't get from other binding systems. Okay, I'm going to move on to my next item, which is, I think, kind of a fun item. Let's see, actually, I think I jumped. Is a museum piece, and essentially, I guess it's a maquette that's being on tour. So one of the issues is, do you take these valuable relics and put them on tour where you risk breaking them? So somebody came up with, which seems like an obvious idea to us, but I'm glad we're moving in that direction, and using scanning systems. Now, the scanning process is a projection-based system. I'm pretty sure, I can't think of the name of it now. I don't know if it mentions it in the article itself, but I'm familiar with it. You project a pattern on an object, and then you capture it with a camera. I want to say Dave, but maybe, yeah, that may not be the right name, but it's somebody's name. And it creates a scan, and here they've actually taken a relief of it, and then here it's actually being printed, and then here's the final object. So now they're able to take this, and I'm assuming that it's painted afterwards. It looks like in some painting environment. And then they can take this copy with them on tour instead of the original. So I've done this when I've been in museums with my occipital structure sensor. In fact, I have something a little later that gives you an idea of it. I scanned a partial scan of a suit of armor back in the medieval days of Spain that I think was kind of fun. So I can see this being very valuable and being used more often to create scale models or maybe actual models of something without having to take the actual historical piece with you. So I thought that was
pretty
kind of
cool. Is the original done from one of those stereo things from back in the day, or where was the original?
David Scanner. It just came to me. Sorry. I'm sorry.
What was the original? What is that original piece? Is it just a sculpture?
Let's see. What's it called? It's open and public. Yeah, it doesn't really indicate. Here we go. Process.
Yeah. The reason I was curious is, I've been to a lot of museums where you put those, the old style, the stereo cameras that they had back in the day that are some of the earliest stereo anything we had. They would have two cameras side by side, even a long time ago. I mean, I've seen Civil War photographs at the Getty Museum. They had Civil War photographs in 3D that you could view on like the old school viewer at the Getty Museum. And I'm just wondering like how cool that would be to take those stereo images and make a 3D image almost like a relief in the same way, either digitally, like so that you could view the images on like using an Oculus or a 3D monitor.
Chris.
Yeah.
We have something a little later to show.
Okay. See, I knew I came to the right place. Talking to you, Mike.
So yes, hopefully after you see my next demo and I talk about the process, you'll see more of this. But it is something similar to what you're talking about. You've been out, but I've been obviously working hot and heavily on a new process called NEODiVR. NEODiVR, and I call it Environmental Awareness Virtual Reality. And it will be able to do what you're talking about. And I will have an example of a demo that I've just created over the last week to talk about. So I thought this is kind of neat, and yes, I see a huge potential, and then we can talk about that a little bit later. So let's see. I think that kind of covers our news items, right? Or do you have one more? No?
Yeah, no. I think we're right into.
Okay, so let me go right into Scanner Darky, which is our scanner section, and we've talked about Scanify. Remember, we had one of the gentlemen come in and actually give us a review of it. I actually own it. I am not a big fan of it. I feel that it is limited. I think it's a unique idea. It uses stereoscopic imaging in order to create the three-dimensional, as you were talking about. But it seems somewhat limited, especially its depth information, and the fact is it still can't stitch multiple items in real time, which I think is the strength of the structure sensor. However, in saying all that, its biggest quality is the detail of the scan. And also the fact is, and I think in 1/100th of a second, it can take a snapshot. So it's great for doing faces, and somebody is using for that, creating toys, as you can see behind me here. So here's somebody, I guess, playing Tony Stark. And there you go. So he's modeled his face and put it as a bunch of action figures.
That's so awesome.
So notice they're hand-painted, detailed. There we go.
Jeez, that is like so good looking.
Yep.
As far as like the quality. It even has a little screen printed T-shirt.
Okay. So as you remember, and
I need this. I want this.
Well, actually, Chris, I have your little guy here, which I'll come back to.
I want one like that though, where it's an action figure.
So
I'm gonna put my head on there.
The next thing.
That's fun.
You're letting the cat out of the bag. You can get action figures. Their heads pop off. So I am creating, and I was going to use you as my first example.
Oh.
That you pop on your head. So we are moving in that direction.
That's pretty fun.
And as you remember, I did, my, as I call her, my tiny wife. So,
yeah, my tiny
this was
wife.
all. So this was all done with the structure sensor, using my new lens system for it. But I think this is really cool, and I think just using the heads, and let me jump back to my screen on that, just scanning the face and then applying it so that you're creating just the head and the torso is just a standard articulated model, I think is a really good direction to go. And I don't know what material he's using, but I think he said he's hand painting it. So
where is he getting these like mini shoes and the mini pants like dressed up perfectly? Wow, that is incredible.
Well, there are Ken doll clothes, so essentially if you make an articulated character, and who knows, it might be a Ken doll with his head on it, you can do stuff like this. And there are tons of clothes in the Barbie world, I guess. So
yeah.
Imagine a girl being able to create a Barbie, not that the Barbie's a good example, but putting their head on it and having
this is
doll
going to be huge. Yeah, some of the first conferences I ever went to for 3D printing, I met, Mattel has been obviously using 3D printing for a long time, like since the beginning. And some of the first conferences I went to like 4 years ago, I met some of these guys that work at Mattel, and yeah, they use 3D printing all day, every day. I mean, they're making new toys. So.
Yeah, well, it's a great prototyping tool, and I'm hoping possibly to get Apple on, because I don't know if you're aware of it, but they have a slew of 3D processes that they work with as well, and I'm kind of hoping I will have an inroad into that soon. My son works for Apple now as a contract worker, so maybe we'll see what happens out of that. Okay, well, enough of this. We'll jump directly to our guest crasher. Joe's been waiting patiently since we started the show. I talked about Onshape last week, and its merits as an up-and-coming, inexpensive, and I'll use the word inexpensive and not cheap, powerful,
very powerful,
cloud-based CAD system, 3D CAD system. And I compare it with Fusion 360 because that's what I use on a day-to-day basis. But when I caught the attention that it was some people behind the original SolidWorks that had put this together, I've been following it for some time, and I'm almost ready to jump ship.
It's cross-platform, and by cross-platform, that means you can use it on anything, even the iPhone. So it's very impressive software. I've gotten to use it a little bit, and it is It's good stuff.
Well, another reason
you guys like
it came in
spoiling all
the
my
news.
surprises, don't you?
Oh,
One of the reasons it came in the news last week is they've had partnership with other companies, and one in notable, as I mentioned last week, was Maxwell Render. So I've asked Joe to come on, and they just had a webinar today that sadly I'll miss. So hopefully I can catch it.
It's
in
recorded.
reruns. Okay.
Yeah.
So without any further ado, Joe, you've got the floor.
Well, hey guys, so you can hear me okay, right?
We can hear you great.
Michael, Chris,
great
thank
mic.
you. So I appreciate the time. You guys got me, if you saw me getting up and moving, because you got me wanting to talk about a bunch of stuff. But I don't know much about the 3D printing. I've got a bit of experience on, but I've been assigned officially to the subtractive manufacturing world. So, and kits, I've been building a bunch of kits in my garage, much to my wife's chagrin. And so I've been trying to, make stuff out of wood and metal, and I think the kits that are coming out of the world for CNC machines are really kind of cool too, because you can really start
Joe,
making...
we do cover those. In fact, when I was at Maker Faire in San Mateo, I talked to several people. In fact, I can't think of their names now, but there are a couple of CNCs that are very affordable now.
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
totally in that
Other
camp.
mill.
I was sure you were.
Yeah, and the only thing that right now I think we're kind of definitely in a time where we're going to see an explosion of CAM software, right? Which is that's the only difference really between subtractive and additive. Is right now we have additive, which is pretty figured out as far as generating toolpaths for the 3D printers based on a 3D model that can even be a mesh file. But with subtractive, you kind of have to have a little bit more information. It requires a tool. You have to choose tools and generate a CAM path, and it's not as easy as necessarily as 3D printing at this point.
It's not, because you got something called force involved, right? And as soon as Newton's second law really throws you to a loop, and that's what I learned. That was the cool part, because I could barely get this to work, but you'll notice the quality of this, is a lot of chatter, a lot of, old-time machinists know this very well, but I was coming from 3D printing where everything's magic and it just works, and then all of a sudden you have to worry about, oh, this stuff actually has a reaction force. So, yeah. Oops.
So in saying that, Joe, obviously there's a reason for it. I'm assuming Onshape now supports CNC subtractive. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, let me, Michael, why don't I do a little background real quick, and I think
Sounds
that
good.
will be answered if you don't mind. All right, so let me share my screen, and I will. I thought what would be useful is just to kind of cover who we are very quickly.
Okay.
As you mentioned, we are, our pedigree, or historically, we are very oriented towards SolidWorks. I was with SolidWorks for 20 years. I've been in this industry, a little bit longer with a couple other CAD companies before this. But we're very mechanical oriented, so we're definitely focused on mechanical design. And I was with SolidWorks when we started in '94, where we were just I don't know, 10 people, and it's grown into, I think, probably the most, SolidWorks is the most widely used product that I find from a professional perspective out there. That's probably the biggest surprise I had since leaving, by the way. I left SolidWorks directly to come to Onshape, and I knew the numbers, but I was just very surprised how much SolidWorks was out there. Anyway.
That's what I use every day.
Yeah, it's a go-to. And so, it's influenced us on what we're doing today, but we definitely saw that the market's changed, platforms have changed, and the business model has changed. So we see a lot of problems that aren't solved and that are constant problems today, and I'll give you a few. I don't think I ever went to a single customer at SolidWorks where if I asked them, hey, that's a pretty cool design, why don't you show it to me? And they'll say, they'll just show me, they'll start SolidWorks and they'll open the model up, and then, oh, that file's out of date. Oh, I'm missing this file. Simple file management where that drive is, I forgot to bring that. I forgot to put those on my USB drive on my computer, and just these small little things were constant annoyance. And whether they had enough seats of the software, whether they had the right version, does it run on the right platform? So those are kind of the problems that we're solving. I'm gonna give a real quick presentation or demonstration of the product too, but if you really want to know what we are, it's very, very similar to a lot of the mechanical CAD where we do parts assemblies and drawings. That's the core of Onshape. And what we've changed is the ability to work together. If the three of us, in fact, I'm going to invite all you guys into Onshape in a second, and if the three of us start working together, what we won't have to do is install a vault. We won't have to check something in and check it out. We won't have to do that. It's very cool, you know, and so very useful, right? It's the way I describe it to people is if you took Google Docs, the good parts of Google Docs, if you took SolidWorks. Well, I'm in a Google Doc here, right? I'm in a Google slide, and by the way, I could, you know, the cool part about Google Docs. I mean, I know we all laugh, right? But I can share this with you, and we can all edit this document at the same time, and that is very powerful.
It is.
But you take SolidWorks, the professional grade tool. You take Google Docs of being able to collaborate and work in a browser, and then you take Git and GitHub and the whole idea of branching and merging and this whole public-private business model. That's what Onshape is. It's actually a pretty good description. Just to make it clear, the business model is very good for the entire world, whether you're an EDU, if you're a maker, you're in the DIY, you're a tinkerer. This is professional grade CAD now for anyone can get it because it's free. But we are targeting and we are going after, you know, high-end professional grade tools. So this is not a toy. I mean, our focus is, you know, large assemblies, performance, you know, tough shapes and stylized, you know, Class A surfacing, you know. These are all this is a professional grade tool, and that's, you know, I'm just trying to say that's the focus of our product, right? And that's kind of a different thing when you talk about these free products or products that running in a browser. And then just, you know, I just slapped this in while we were talking, but, you know, just the question that comes up. I mean, the reality is everybody's working with other products. We know it. We're rapidly increasing and improving our product with different capabilities and different file formats. And, you know, if it's coming from a 3D solid modeling tool, if you need to bring it in or write it out, chances are we probably already, you know, cover it. And I guess I forgot to say too, just one more thing is the product itself is basically 1 year old, a little bit over. So January, so let's say 12 months. I can't do math. Whatever. 16 months. All right. Whatever that is. That sounds like a good number. But I mean, there wasn't a line of code written until then, and so we are very, very new, and it's state of the art, taking advantage of where the platform, what you can do in a platform. So, as an example, what you see here is Chris mentioned this. We run on everything, and my favorite platform. You know, I'll show you in a minute. We'll try to get it if I can just keep all my devices from going to sleep. You know, whether I'm on a phone, my Chromebook, which is my favorite, Mac, Windows, we don't care. You know, it's a very elegant solution, and it really does leverage all this, and it's the full product. What's really interesting is it's not just a viewer on the phone. You can use it as a viewer, but it's the full product. It's one product. Kind of, I always say it's like Lord of the Rings, right? One ring to rule them all, but it runs everywhere.
Right, and it's cloud-based, so you can run these really large assemblies and see it visually and edit it on, like you're saying, on a Chromebook or an iPad, and it's not using the GPU to crunch all the stuff. It's using the GPU to display it on the screen, but all the crunching, all the math and everything's happening in the cloud.
Exactly right. It's a very elegant and it's a very subtle solution, but you're absolutely right. You know, so I can be on a very low-end, inexpensive machine and get extremely good performance. I mean, I'll take a low-end machine next to my high-end, super water-cooled, nitrogen-cooled, you know, game machine running SolidWorks or whatever product, desktop app, and do the same thing on both, and they're roughly equal at this point. And here's the thing, is that we did a lot of prototyping, and at this point, it's basically the same performance on a very inexpensive platform, but we have nowhere to go but up, and we're going to be tapping into all of that power that's available in the cloud as time goes on, because we already know what we're going to do. But at this point, we're really at the point where we just have a lot of basic stuff that we still got to get in the product. You know, we know there's some basic one-on-one things that we're still rapidly adding to it, and that's our focus at this point. But just as a, you know, to me this is relatively exciting, but just to understand, you know, the product's free, right? I mean, if you look at the checkboxes, oops, go back here. bumped it somehow. You know, the difference between a free and a professional user is not parts, assemblies, drawings, sharing, all this. I mean, you basically are a full citizen whether you're building parts in your garage or you're a professional manufacturer somewhere with 20 engineers building something. What you pay for is privacy, essentially. You know, in general, I'm just philosophically, this is the way you got to think of it, is that if you have intellectual property and that you really do have to protect that to make sure other people don't see it, we give you a little bit of privacy with the free, as a free account. You do get some, but in general, we feel that that's a professional use, and that's where you would do the $100 a month. But if you just want to use it for projects and other learning or just some maker stuff, you got a product there too. And Michael mentioned, and this is really kind of where we engage a little bit, is I've been doing. We have an API and we have a whole partner program, and we've already started to see many partners work with our API to integrate their functionality. And my world is the CAD, the 3D CAD world, and everything revolves around my world. But today we were partnering with Maxwell Render, and they showed their integration. So they just reach right into Onshape. They have a free version now that you can do 800 by 800 for free. They have, I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's $19 a month for a high def HD quality render per month, and then they've got another package for the full product. But it's really nice that they've kind of changed their product offering to kind of coincide with Onshape. And even
is that a cloud-based render, or is that a machine-specific hardware solution?
At this point, it's a phased approach, and a lot of people are doing this because our API, in fact, you asked a question, so I'm going to jump to this. You kind of have 3 routes that you can take to integrate with us. You can do what I showed before with just some files, right? Based on the different file formats we read and write, you already can work with a lot of products. And then you can go to if you have a desktop application, our API, it's a REST API. It allows you to, basically we're doing open authentication, and you can reach in from the desktop and grab the information out of Onshape and pop it into your app. And that's kind of where a lot of people are starting because it's very quick and easy, and that's where Maxwell is.
I'm more specifically meant Maxwell. Is it in the cloud? Yeah,
well,
it is.
So long story. No, sorry. No, long story short. Sorry, you're not gonna get a short answer.
Yeah. Right.
It's desktop today, and it's phase 1, and they're actively working on the cloud version of what they have as well. And I think everybody fits in that.
$19 a month.
Yeah,
they're doing a subscription plan thing. So if you have some rendering you want to do, you turn on your subscription and turn it off in 30 days if you aren't going to use it. And then if you have some rendering, a client comes to you and wants to render, you turn your subscription back on. I think this is a really good smart business model nowadays.
I agree, and I'm
you
very
use it.
Yeah, and the thing that's cool about it is, I hate to advertise this, but I mean, you don't even have to pay for Onshape to do so if you wanted to use Maxwell, you could say, all right, $19 for Maxwell, but I'm still an Onshape free user, and we're not making a requirement that you have to be professional for to use these different things. So you can really mix and match. You have a lot of freedom, and it's because make no mistake, what they're going to do is they're going to limit it. You're not going to be able to use SolidWorks with this offering. It's going to be for Onshape. This is the business model that they've chosen. So because we give them the ability to identify, the way to do that. So, all right. Anyway, let me just show you the product because I think it's probably better than anything just to give you a quick overview because I don't want to do too much, but.
Yeah. So Joe, let me interrupt for just a moment.
Oh, please.
My experience with Maxwell Render in the past, obviously the GPU functionality wasn't as it is today, and I know that there are a lot of GPU enhanced, what do you call them, photon-based renderers out there. Is that the case with Maxwell Render as well? Do they now?
I believe they're CPU. There's I think Keyshot might be the same way. You kind of got 2 camps, right? You got iRay and those kinds of guys that are doing GPU-based approach, and then you've got the CPU approach, Moto and I'm not going to name drop too much, but Moto, I think Keyshot, definitely Maxwell are CPU approach, and they both have arguments, pros and cons of it, and sorry if I'm answering too much, but the thing about CPU that's kind of for the cloud, the CPU is a more straightforward approach because you got a lot of CPUs available in the cloud right now, and that's a very, for me that seems like a very clear-cut direction to go in that respect.
No, and you're answering the other question I had is since it is cloud-based and you can throw a lot of CPUs at it, that makes a lot of sense as well. Okay, now I'm going to bring up, what do you want to call it, the other package. As I said, I work with Fusion 360 day to day, and they incorporated not too long ago, at least in the Ultimate version, and they gave a very substantially reduced price for students as well as anybody else who was using it early on, of I think $300 for an annual price. So I took advantage of it, and they also have a cloud-based render that actually has been fairly impressive and very easy to use. Are you making those strides as well with Onshape with Maxwell to provide that same ease of use? And I'm assuming that you've worked with Fusion 360 and realized that that is, I guess, to say underneath my breath, your competition in this area. How does that compare?
Well, let's see. So, without getting into the different comparisons directly, I wouldn't really know all of it. You asked about the ease of use of Maxwell as an example. Our approach is an open format or open marketplace. So I mean, there's a fundamental difference. You've got one company who wants to just offer one solution, one package, kind of old school because that's the way all the CAD systems used to be, right? You got this big, you got everything from one vendor, and that's kind of sounds like their direction. What I'm working with is a marketplace. We're going to have an app store. We don't have our sales channel is very very clean. I couldn't do this at SolidWorks, right? I wanted to do this at SolidWorks with partners, but the problem was we had salespeople, we had the indirect channel where that means, I might like a particular product, but if the particular local guy didn't carry it, partners were problematic. Here we have, just think the Apple App Store or Google Play. That's very much sets the tone and the concept of what we are doing. We're putting the plumbing and e-commerce system together now. So soon, you're going to be able to go in and pick more than one render, more than one CAM system, and more than one analysis product, and they'll probably all have different ways of offering it. Whether we're encouraging them to do a free version as well as a paid version, but it'll be a single billing system. It'll be licensed. It'll be all integrated. So it's very nice. So to me, this is a better way to go. I like the marketplace, and I like to choose. But then you have a little bit of chaos involved with that too. So you'll have to decide what suits you better. Do you like one solution, all of it coming from one vendor, or do you want to be able to pick and choose what you get?
Right.
And I actually use other applications that have taken this approach, and it works well for the most part. Especially if the API is written well that allows you to connect the two applications together.
Agreed. And we're okay. So something interesting on that. I don't have it on my slide, but the API for us is way different than any of the CAD systems that I've ever worked with. Even the DCC world with 3D Max and everybody, which kind of does a lot of this stuff. We have drawings, and drawings are actually using our API. Because we're partnering with a company that's helping us with their AutoCAD technology. So our drawings are actually based on some technology under the hood, and I don't want to belabor it except for to say that in our core product we utilize the API. So what that means is that it's very stable, it's very robust for the type of workflow that you're doing. And what I would at SolidWorks, what would happen is we would come out with a new release, and then the API would typically catch up with that new functionality 6 months later, because the API team would only get going once the product was released and debugged a little bit. We, on the other hand, the API and the product go hand in hand. We're putting out new functionality every couple of weeks. This product's continuing to enhance constantly. And the API is not something that catches up. The API is the product. So it is definitely, from a mindset, we're taking this much differently than in the past in this market anyway.
Well, and I really like your approach to it, and like you said, an a la carte system with an integrated API that allows people to work with it. And as they say, you're eating your own dog food here and using
Correct.
your own API to develop your own processes, which is very important. It's not an afterthought. I've got a few things that I'm going to be importing over the weekend, and I'm going to see how well I can adapt to it, and you may have a new follower soon. So, Joe, I really appreciate your time for coming on, and if you want to conclude with maybe a few renders that have been created using your application, and also kind of go through a list of some of the features Onshape provides. I noticed that some of the, looking at your new store, you're going to have I can't remember the term that you use, but stress analysis functionality in components, and obviously the CAM functionality you had talked about, and obviously using by the parts you created. So if you wouldn't mind doing that really quick, and then we'll move on with our show.
All right, I'll wrap it up. In other words, wrap it up is what you're trying to say.
Politely. Actually, you've got me on your screen right now. If you.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. I have it done. Well, listen. So I don't think I can do justice to any of the things. I mean, let me just give you. I would encourage anyone just to try it out. I mean, typically what I see is if you want to kind of know what our typical users are doing, is we see a lot of people coming from SolidWorks, and if you've got experience with SolidWorks or Pro Engineer, Inventor, Solid Edge, lots of these different products. What you're going to find is a product that's very, very similar, and the learning curve is small. I mean, and I'm talking minutes typically. You just kind of got to learn where the new stuff is. But just try it. Come on over, and I can't do. We should come back on later at some point in time. I'll stop sharing my screen. And
we'd love to have an Onshape full-blown
yeah. And so and there's going to be partners every week, guys. So I mean, I've got in the queue analysis, CAM, rendering, so they're coming up. So I mean, there'll be no end of things to talk about. So you let me know, and we'll be happy to walk you through each one of them.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Joe, for coming on the program and sharing with us. And we definitely wish you the best of luck. I love Onshape. I can't wait to. I actually need to delve back in. I haven't used it in some time. Obviously, I use SolidWorks daily, but when I'm on the road, I am looking for a solution, and knowing that I might be able to exchange and go back between and have one without all the licensing restrictions of SolidWorks with being on my laptop, or have to deauthorize one computer.
I just confirmed Joe's a good guy. He's got his assistant in the background, like many of us. I've got my two in front. They're my furry assistants. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, good deal, guys. And I would suggest everyone try it. And another just last thing that I think you should check out is that, especially Michael, since you asked, I have to say one thing, is that one characteristic of this product that pay attention to is stability, because you will find this to be the most stable product you've ever used. And it's weird, but it's the platform. You can name the product. I'm not going to pick on anyone, even though you mentioned one. Is that it crashes a lot, and we just don't crash. And it's not because we're special or magic or anything, but our architecture makes this stable.
Well, that's the reason I'm talking to you, Joe. Not to mention any names. And
yes.
So yes, I'm eager to try something.
I challenge
like
you. Yes. Right.
Well, the challenge is taken.
All right.
So if anything else comes up, don't hesitate to email us.
I will.
Kind of give us. We do this every Friday, so if you want to throw us something in on early in the week, we'll make sure it gets. We like to follow. I wouldn't say the underdog, but the new guys out on the block. So
go check it out, onshape.com.
So again, thank you, Joe.
Bye.
All right, I'm going to move into my next item here so we can move this along, Chris. I know that we're both limited on time. And I'm going to follow it with a little video called A Boy and His Kite. Now, there's a reason I'm bringing this up. Unreal Developer Kit from Epic just came out with 4.8. And they put this together. Normally they've created first-person type action shots, but this is more in the line of Pixar. But look at this. Amazing. And, obviously my goal is to provide virtual reality environments that kind of move you from the real world, but yet take you into the real world. If you don't have the opportunity to see things, say that you're disabled. This gives people an opportunity to do things that really haven't been available. So that's been given a big push. And so anybody who keeps moving this forward and increasing the realism, providing the tools to do this, I'm going to talk about. But what do you think, Chris? Isn't this just
it's like something, just like the lighting, the texture maps. Yeah, it's like you said, it's very similar to what Pixar would be putting out, you know, as far as, I mean, it's production quality.
Now, the important thing to realize is that even though we probably have amped up textures and
Hey,
so
Mike,
forth.
I can't, you're going to have to turn down the video.
Sorry.
Yeah, there you go, and turn you up. There you go.
Okay. How about now?
Much better.
Okay. So the important thing to remember is that this is a real-time 3D engine. Now, the textures may have been bumped up to improve the video here, but this is the engine producing this. And one of the big things is that this is one of their new, what they call large maps. So I can't remember the actual square footage, but I'll drop right into their website here. But as you saw in the video, it is substantial. They partnered with a lot of people. Here's actually a shot of the quality of the textures. They've incorporated. The other thing that's important is that they're also partnering with many of the VR people out there, including obviously the Oculus Rift, but also I have it up here, the Steam VR system, which is really getting a lot of attention because it adds a new level of immersion. Even though you still require a great machine, you can now move around in an environment, and you know that it's something I have been working on. New network functionality, but this particular map here is a large map. I can't remember, like 10 square miles or something like that. So imagine being able to explore an environment of that size, go on hikes without ever leaving your living room. I know that's not the real experience, but imagine being able to go to a country that you've never been before. And let's say you do visit, but you have an opportunity to see it. This is the next level, in my opinion, of Google Streets.
Definitely.
Well, it's going to take a lot of work, but I do see this next season, the holiday season, which extends into January, February, is being very, very interesting because we've got some heavy hitters, Sony, the Valve VR system, and Oculus, all kind of grabbing for your dollars, and they all have some really cool stuff. And however, if you don't have content for it, it's not going to really work very well.
So opportunity there for content creators. That's why I think it's these engines getting on board. This is just moving things forward. I think even the content creators and the engine houses like Unreal, I think they're all grabbing, you know, Unity versus Unreal. I mean, more and more features every day. It seems like reading some module to plug into these content creation engines.
All right. Well, obviously that's a segue into something else. But while I'm setting up, why don't you take over and go ahead into one of your items? Let's see. You've got you have an experience you want to talk about in 3D in medicine. While I'm setting up, that you have a personal experience. Sadly, you had some issues. We'll just call them that, with your loved one.
Yeah,
so furry guy, huh?
Yeah, so my best friend in the whole world, Cash. He's my dog, and he recently full tore his ACL, which is basically holds your knee together, you know. And so we went in, and Dr. Bob Sykes, who's a really renowned animal surgeon in our area, fixed him all up, did a knee surgery, but he also treats animals with deformities and all kinds of problems with their bones. And what he and I have been working on together, he had some CT imagery from a local animal hospital that has a CT machine. and we reassembled it into 3D and 3D printed some of the bones out as samples. So that's been kind of my 3D in medicine little, because you can use it for pre-op planning, obviously, as Mike and I have talked about. Mike and his wife have gone through this beautiful journey together, and used 3D printing and 3D visualization to kind of plan her surgery. Now the local veterinary hospitals can also do the same, or not just local, any vet or doctor. I'm basically highlighting, the use of 3D to pre-op for pre-op planning, which is saving a lot of time, a lot of resources, and you have to have the dog open less, or the cat, or whatever animal you're working on, or human for that matter. So you can take a bone structure, 3D print it out, and plan your surgery a lot more efficiently, or even effectively. So the piece of software that we've been using is actually somewhat new to me, and it's a piece of software called Osirix, and it runs on Mac OS 10 and on iOS. The latest piece of software is 6.5. And it does a really, really good job taking DICOM images and reassembling them into STLs or any 3D format that you might want to be working on. It goes a lot deeper than just using just using it for what I've been using it for, but nonetheless, it does a really good job of keeping the images kind of organized. This is kind of like what the interface looks like a little bit. See it here.
So Chris, I actually have on AirPlay, which I'll bring up here in a second.
Yeah.
Something to show you. So, you have. Is this a demo, or is this your?
This is a screenshot showing. So over here, you can see on the left, you can actually organize by folder. So it's a really nice way to, it not only is a really good viewer for DICOMs in general, like really that's what I think most people probably use it for, is to actually just like work with the DICOMs, go through as a doctor. A lot of doctors use this piece of software to actually view the DICOM images that they're getting from CT or MRI, but the functionality to actually export as 3D is even better. So yeah, so here's Mike here showing us kind of the interface. You can actually get a free version of Osirix.
Yeah, all you have to do is sign up, which I did some time ago. Now,
and it does a great job.
Yeah. It does a great job, but it has some interesting features that might be useful. As you know, I've talked about two other products, Invasilius and 3D Slicer, but they're not FDA approved. This actually can be FDA approved if you buy their Pro version, and even that is like $6.99, which is a very reasonable amount. That was interesting. I don't know why it dropped out like that. Let's see if I can bring it back.
So now we see the behind the scenes, how you do your magic, Mike.
Yeah,
you're using an Apple TV.
Yes.
Haha.
There we go. Are we back?
Not quite. So either way, pretty incredible.
Oh, it died.
Yeah,
well,
so you can actually organize your your DICOMs right here in the interface, and then you can just kind of pile them together and go into the 3D viewer, and it'll actually just make a 3D. It'll even do solid models. It'll build you solid models. But for 3D printing, I just built a surface model and then bring it over into, and then you could even use it, bring it into NetFab if you need to clean it up at all. And then, yeah, and so pretty awesome. Pretty awesome piece of software. Pretty cool to use and see. So I printed some unique samples of some bones of some animals, and they turned out really well.
So you actually printed them from this software?
Printed in, I printed from Osiris. I printed some actual, yeah, some actual bones, like some leg pieces. I don't have them here. I sent them off. They're actually at a symposium now for veterinary for veterinarians that's down in Pismo Beach, going on yesterday and today, and we're going to be so they were going to be featured. You know, at that symposium, and the vets were going to be talking about it and how it affects pre-op planning. So very cool stuff.
Yep. So yeah, that's very cool, and I can see its benefit from that. And so yes, the good thing about this application is, like I said, it's $6.99, and it is available and it is FDA approved. So if you want to get an application that can be used in conjunction with, let's say, a physician or somebody else, it is FDA approved for that. So the reason that I am over here, why don't you go ahead and do your next item while I can figure out what's going on here. I think there was an update and it broke my system. Yeah. And I don't want to be on. So that's disappointing that they have made some choices for me that I didn't want and have removed the Ethernet capability. So, all right, well, go ahead and continue while I struggle to figure out what's going on here.
No worries. I guess I could go into my my product of the week, which is pretty cool. I've been working on a linear dolly for cinematography, so videography or photography, which is obviously one of my active hobbies. I'm really into that. I've got my digital SLR, but then I also, which I've used for years and years. Nowadays, I just shoot on a Canon Rebel T2i, I think is what, or T3i, something like that is what I've been shooting. And then obviously I've got the GoPro. So, but we all know to get those pro shots, you got to have the dolly. So I'm building a dolly now that's Arduino controlled. There's actually a GitHub repo for, it's called DollyDuino. So I'm kind of making my own edits to already existing code that's on GitHub at DollyDuino. So somebody was kind enough to post their code. They'd already done most of the legwork. And then, but for the hardware, I'm using a linear actuator from Open Build Part Store. And I'll show it off here with the actual, I haven't actually assembled mine yet because I just got it in the mail yesterday. But this is my product of the week. Here it is. So for 1,000 mil or a 1 meter with a motor, it's a linear actuator, is $147. So a really pretty cost effective. Here's what the linear actuator actually looks like. So it's got a nice rail system. You know, it's got the dampeners. It's built on their, what they call their C-beam platform. So the nice part is you can actually, you know, all of it's open source. So all the profiles for everything is all right on their website. You can download it, put it into SolidWorks or whatever your CAD package is, and kind of come up with whatever solution. So it's an actuator that's open source, and you can use it to actuate essentially whatever you want. And they even have a kit that they just announced, I think this morning, which is the C-beam machine. So it's basically a bunch of the 3 of those axes in one package for $500. So Open Build Part Store, I get a lot of parts from them. They're really cost effective, and they post their actual you know, parts online. So pretty cool stuff. Yeah, so that was my product of the week. So Mike's still figuring out his technical issues, and I guess I could just hey, Mike.
Hey, I'm back. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and let it reboot and quickly show you what I've been working on. So I will show you two things. One, here is the Homido NEODiVR combination. It includes the new faceplate that I designed, that you take off the old one, 4 screws plus a center screw, and you're back up and running.
Psh, it's a beautiful thing.
Yep, and actually works really nice. But since my Apple TV, you know, the problem is Apple isn't always what it's cracked up to be, even though I developed for it. But here is its finished product. And I was going to show you something today, and sadly I won't be able to. But there's an environment in here that allows you to walk around a medical office. And sadly, my Apple TV
Does somebody
even
prod
work.
on you? Does a doctor come out and prod you?
No. No, you actually play the doctor. You sit in the doctor's chair, and there's actually a patient in front of you.
Do you virtually turn your head and cough?
Actually, I'll tell you what. We can do this. Yeah, funny. We can do it this way. There's more than one way. We can just put it up to the camera.
Whoa.
So there you go.
Oh, yeah. Check it out. Yeah.
So
Wow.
when you put this in front of you, so this is what I've been working on. And essentially, you can walk around your office. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but there's a window over there, which, because I'm in Morro Bay, you can look out and see Morro Bay. So if anyone out there is interested, and actually, sorry again, I don't switch my screens, but here it is. If anybody's interested in trying this out, it is available. I have up to 10 people who can beta test it. I plan to create 2 more over the next couple of weeks. One is a cave demo, so you can walk around in a cave. And the other is an art gallery where all the famous art from around the world will be available for you to look at, which obviously can't happen in real life. That's why I'm doing it. So I don't know if you can notice, I can't, since I'm not moving, but I have a new technique that I've added, that if you get too close to an object, because remember, you can walk around, it buzzes and shows the screen as red there. So that way you don't run into the real world while you're
You don't run into a wood chipper.
Yeah, exactly. That would be bad. But there's a few fun things in here that you can look around. Huh? I'm sorry.
Head first into a wood chipper.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good. There goes your goggles. We wouldn't want that to happen. So the other thing is that I have I'm making available a new version of this that I ordered through Shapeways, that I made it into 2 pieces. If you remember the one that we prototyped with you, Chris, it was like 4 pieces. So the nice thing behind using SLS is that you can combine a lot of stuff, and now it's into 2 pieces. So when it finally gets made for injection molding soon, it will be available for the 6 Plus and the new 6S Plus, which supposedly is going to offer the new A9 processor. And one of the things in iOS 9 is that you can now support SceneKit, which I've been working heavily in with metals, so you get even more performance. And they're going, supposedly, from what I read, a 2 gigabyte memory built in. I think right now the iPhones include 1 gig. The only thing that has 2 gigs is the iPad Air 2. So if they do support that, that'll be really cool. The other fun thing is if you don't, let's say, have an iPhone or don't plan to get an iPhone, let's say you're an Android user, they just came out with 2 days ago with the iPod Touch update, which is an A8 processor, which is very similar to one that's in the current iPhone, and it will be marketed for $199 for a 16 gig, $250 for 32, and then on up. I think they even have a 128 gig version now. So if you're looking for something to do something like this, I am making a bracket that will support the smaller screen. It's not the same experience. I would suggest probably getting either my NEODiVR Value Edition. I owe you one of those, don't I? I need to send it to you.
what, you know, I mean, I'll take it. I'll take anything you want to throw my way, Mike.
No, well,
you don't owe me anything. You don't owe me anything.
Okay,
No.
so
Yeah.
that's obviously what I've been working on, as well as
Thanks for sharing
BioStep
that.
Capture and Catalog, which will be out soon. I'll be working all weekend to get that done. And then we've got a few other things to talk about. So I'm going to switch to my virtual camera and this, and make sure I've got the right
Camera.
up. Yeah, because I didn't last time. I did an open box last week of the MakerBot to go, and today I'm going to actually put it all out of the box and talk about it. Now, as you know, I've had an Ultimaker 2. I've confirmed with Eric that this device shares all the components other than its size with the Ultimaker 2. The difference is this does not support a bed. So give me a moment to switch my headset real quick.
Very interesting looking enclosure. Some sort of I think the
Can you hear me?
Yeah, the Ultimaker to go
I'll
is
have
made
to
to move. It's
since I
made
don't
to
have-
be mobile.
What?
It's made to be mobile, so it looks like it has some sort of protective foam as the enclosure.
Yeah, it's a hard foam case. In fact, I had actually asked them to have it. This was actually behind us at TEDx. It was one of our team that I had the skull on when I pulled it out. So they sent it to me, and then I brought it here from Spain to do an open box. So yes, it is made for portability and the ability to you know, bring with you to wherever you want. Now, on that note, I'm going to pull it out of the box and go through really quickly kind of my review on it, and I'm going to have to remove my earpiece to do so. So use sign language. Actually, I won't even be looking at you. So here we go. So essentially, you remove the top, and this is what you have below.
There you go. Okay.
And let's see. So everything is housed. You have your filament off to one side. You have the unit here. And as mentioned, all the components are the same as the Ultimaker 2 and 2 Extended. It's just in a smaller container. And there we go. So it has the same dual, actually I think it only has one for the head, but it actually uses the same XYZ double rail guides, as you can see here.
Right.
Uses the same Bowden extruder on the back.
And that looks like very easy to replace or service.
As mentioned before, I've had some issues with it, but in looking at it, they've actually modified the grip mechanism, so that has actually improved it. They've also put out a new version of Cura, so I plan to do a little demo of that separately and launch it. But other than that, the only difference is obviously the bed is smaller, so you can't print as large, and it comes with a nice little kit in the top of the box. Here you go. So you have all of your tape, and as you can attest to, we like the glue stick, but it comes with the tape and comes with a little glass plate. And like the previous version, it uses these nice little metal tabs, and you just slide it right in. However, it is not a heated bed, but I asked Eric directly if all the components are shared, and it is. So that means if I wanted to,
you could
I
wire
could
one
create
in.
a heated bed, but he did identify that the power supply that plugs into the back of it is of lower power than obviously the 2 and the 2X, so you would have to beef that up. But the board is the same, so you could wire in your own heated bed. But since they enclose it just like the previous version, I'm not depending on your environment, if you have a warm environment, I don't see the real issue. Now, I normally print PLA with a heated bed at a lower rate, and I've had much better luck with that. So I like a heated bed, but we'll do that soon and see how well it sticks. But in my experience in the past, especially with the Polymax, which I have coming in as a 2.85 millimeter, we'll see how well it sticks. But right now I find that it sticks very well at a low temperature, and I'm looking forward to it. As mentioned, it does come with a roll of this. The cost of this is around $1,000, but if you're familiar with the Ultimaker, it has some really good quality components. I'll put my earpiece back in, and if you've got any questions for me, Chris, you can hear me now. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's nifty. I love that carrying case too. Wow, what a great little mobile printer.
Yeah, my only suggestion for it is that it has more of a handle. Right now it's like a strap system, so I would like to have a little handle built in, but that could be a 3D printed item. But I've recommended that to them. Other than that, it's basically a 2 scaled down. Obviously with that you get a smaller print bed, but they were looking at using these things for schools. So I don't know if you play with the new Cura, but it has some new features that allow you to get down to like 25 microns in print. And I'm going to jump to my desktop, but
I use the Lulzbot edition for Cura. I've primarily, that's pretty much all I use. I've been trying out the new Simplify 3D. 3.02 came out yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It has some great features, but I'm so tried and true with Cura that for most of my production right now, I just stay with Cura. It's so fast too, and
now,
it's already pre-configured for my Lulzbot.
Do you have the new update for Cura for your Lulzbot, or are you still using an older version?
Well, it's the most up-to-date Lulzbot edition Cura, so I don't know if it's the same version as the general Cura, because I use Lulzbot specific, because that's pretty much what I'm driving right now. Which kind of brings us into my Print Whisperer tip of the day.
Okay, well, let me finish up with this, and then I'll let you get into that, and then I have another open box to do. But let me jump to this. I brought this up because one of the things that we've seen in the past, if you remember the Ronin character, somebody else has created a highly detailed, articulated character, as you can see behind me here, creating with the Ultimaker. So I'm assuming that it's probably being done at the 50 or 100 in order to get this kind of quality. But that done, here's a little video we can play. So it is a fairly large character, but look at the detail in that. Normally that's the kind of the detail that you would see on an SLA printer. And again, the Ultimaker, this is where it shines. And they've worked very hard in order to create very accurate components. And I'm not saying that the Lulzbot cannot do the same thing. Obviously it can, but they do this by using tried and true techniques and just improving and honing it. And as you said, you use the Cura, which really works very well with the Cartesian-based printers. Now keep in mind, I've actually used Cura with Delta, but their strength is in using the Cartesian-based. In fact, if I remember correctly, the Lulzbot shares a lot of the same type of features as the Ultimaker as far as the way that it handles its gantry. So, but
Right.
one other
very similar.
One other point about the Ultimaker that I have to really recommend to people is that they've done so much for the nonprofit. They worked hand in hand with Enable and donated a lot of printers to that cause. So I give them a little extra attention because of it. Eric has been a really good guy. He's been on our show before. He's the CEO of Ultimaker, and he really looks at his market from a broad perspective. All their products are open source, so that if you wanted to copy it, you could. Don't recommend it, as well as making the Cura available for other people like Lulzbot to use with their printer. that says a lot to Ultimaker, and that's one of the reasons I continue to show it. But very cool character there. I don't think I would have the time or patience to print something like that, but man, what you can do with 3D printing that just a few years ago you couldn't think about. So,
All right.
okay, so Mr. Print Whisperer, it's been a
All
long
right.
time.
Print
Tell us.
Whisperer. Okay. Print Whisperer tip of the day is it's a G-code tip for those of you that either want to change colors mid-print or you want to insert a nut into your print so that it's built in, or whatever you're trying to do. It's M0. It's super easy. All you do is you go into your G-code, like if you're in Cura, you view your G-code, you find out which line you want to insert a pause in. So whether it's layer 1 or layer 10 or 20 or 2000, whatever layer it is. So you open your G-code up, you generate your G-code, save the G-code, and then open it up in your favorite editor of choice. I use a program called Notepad++. It's helped me along for many years now. Notepad++ is my go-to document editor for when I'm coding or editing G-code. I find and seek out the layer that I want to insert my pause, and either before or after, and I just insert capital M0, and that's it. That's a pause, and your machine will pause at that layer. So you have to be ready for it. You don't want to leave the machine unattended for too long. It will stay hot. Your machine will stay hot depending on the firmware that you're running. My little spot will stay hot and on. It will just pause. So it'll sit there hot and on all night if you put a pause in there. And so if you want to print something like multicolor, if you see behind me here, you could see a multicolor map I'm printing. It's got blue where the water is, the coast of the California where we live, and then the green is the land. So at that layer, I put in an M0 command in the G-code, and so it pauses, change my filament, and then press enter on the machine, and it will pick up with that changed filament. So M0, simple G-code command, and it'll help pause things. And it really helps a lot with multicolor, or it's super simple, super easy. So that's the Print Whisperer tip of the day.
Hey, thank you, Chris. My own experience with G-code is the version of, I think it's Simplified 3D. I've had to add codes to cause the fans to modify their speed, because they normally come blasting on when I turn it on. So I send it a couple of G-codes to quiet them until I'm ready to print, and really kind of cuts down on the ambient noise. All right, I want to get back into the medical area just quickly before I do the final open box, and then we can end the show. And that was this other article that I saw. We have been seeing an explosion, just as you mentioned, Chris, you're using 3D printing to print CT scans for the veterinary field, but we're seeing a lot of CTs being used to print skulls. In this case, this is a child in China that has a condition where fluid builds up and expands the skull. As you're aware, when you're a child, your skull is conducive to expanding. So severe issue, as you can see in this picture here, the large size of the cranium. But they put her through a long, I think it was 18-hour surgery. And let's see, they don't show it here, but they created a titanium skull for her that expands, but more like a traditional skull, which will contain the fluid and prevent the expansion that you see here, so she can have a normal life. And one of the reasons they did this is because it was starting to create issues of her possibly going blind because of the pressure. Plus obviously other issues as well. So again, another great opportunity with 3D scanning, and as I mentioned in mine, and I'll go ahead and come back to me because I hope I'm not upsetting. Okay, it's off the screen.
My Lord, that is heavy duty.
Yeah,
Whew.
but obviously we're seeing more and more uses of this. I just had an inquiry from somebody on the East Coast who's doing their doctorate on, he's a resident right now, on using 3D processing for I can't remember it, but it's a heavy hospital in New York. And so I gave him a lot of links and applications and software to go to get more information on. So we're starting to see more of it in this country as well, of these type of things, and it's really, in my opinion, changing it. And I'm glad that we were a part of it, Chris. As I said, I did the TEDx, and it was very emotional for me because it was like a conclusion to a lot of the things that I have been working on, and obviously it's played out that and touched a lot of people. And well, enough of that. So I'm going to go right into this last item. And while I'm talking about it, the theme of our issue here is how 3D processing is kind of changed world events. And one of the reasons I brought it up is that somebody is memorializing the death of an individual by 3D printing that individual to create not necessarily a positive outlook, but not necessarily a negative response to what they call, gosh, now I've already forgot about
Honor killings.
Honor killing, which in my opinion is a very horrific act, and not that it doesn't happen in other countries, but the fact is it seems to be ignored in some of these countries, or actually even respected, and I don't really agree with that. So I'm glad that we're using approaches like 3D printing a bust to kind of bring attention to these things that they're not right. And as some other more positive, uplifting things, 3D printing endangered species, to bring attention to that, and other respects. And we just talked about how it's being used in the medical as a positive. So we're seeing huge influences on what's going on in the world. And I just thought maybe you could talk about that a little bit, Chris. What is your feelings while I get ready to unbox here?
Yeah, I'm excited to see that technology is kind of meeting sociology here. It's kind of like a mesh between. I mean, we're even seeing. I could see Banksy, famous street artist. I haven't really seen him using a lot of 3D printing, but I'm sure it's probably on the forefront of his brain, because I've been seeing a lot more street artists, like we covered it a few weeks ago with the bust of Edward Snowden that was done in New York,
Oh,
so
that's a good point. Yep.
we're seeing a lot of the protest happen. And what's unique about it is, especially in a sculpture, is you can have almost like a rapid response, because typically, I mean, sculptures, they take so much time, but now you can sculpt on the computer in minutes, have a pretty accurate representation of whatever you're trying to do. And or you can scan things, and then you can rapid manufacture them that more cost effectively than ever before. So we're seeing a lot of protests now, or kind of like I don't know what you would call them, like street art, involve 3D printing, and definitely I think this example of Mike brought to our attention is this. Can't remember what it's. Remember Shefalea, which is going to be in the show notes, but it's that's the hashtag Remember Shefalea. Shefalea. I don't know how to say her name.
I don't know either.
She was killed apparently in an honor killing. Really sad. But
it was several years ago. I think it was 2003 or 2005. So this is a way to keep the memory alive, as well as also, I don't know, it's like 200 and something other honor killings that have occurred since then. So I saw in our somebody talking about that. Is this something that has increased, or is it just more awareness by the media? And they didn't really give a firm answer to that. But I'm glad that we're seeing ways to keep this in the news and people aware of it, and not necessarily by showing very negative or gruesome images, but more positive respects that, you know, these were people and, you know, processes or however you want to deal with it, that I personally abhor, allows us to bring attention to it. So
Right.
thank you, Chris, for actually bringing up the Edward Snowden thing, which was another example of how this was being used to bring attention to an issue. All right,
Right.
so on to a very quick unboxing. This is a product called Nano. If you remember, we talked about it, gosh, several months ago, and I guess it finally finished shipping. I'll bring attention to him. A guy who goes by the name of Hector sent it to me. So I don't know, I'm assuming he wants it back. But he thought, hey, it would be better if we had it sent to you and you can kind of talk about it and put it through its paces. So the first thing we'll do is an unboxing. So this is the box. It comes
Keep your
okay.
camera up, Mike. I can't see it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. So here's the unboxing. It comes in a standard cardboard box. It comes with a color illustrated sheet on how to get it set up. But if you remember, this was the cut plexiglass version, and I'll pull it out here. So this is it. And if you remember, it's an SLA, but it uses a unique, it looks like I don't know if you can see it here.
I remember this.
But this is called the Nano. Obviously, it's a little tiny SLA printer. The tray is kind of cool. In fact, here it is. You can see it in here. It's a little, you think actually I'm going to bring it, if you remember our little RP.
This is a Petri. This is a mini Petri.
It's the micro Petri tree, but you know, the settings are very similar, and it actually has a little layer of material in there that, I don't know, looks almost like a little piece of tape for the adhesion bed. Now, obviously, it doesn't have, whoops, look, it's falling apart on me. But it's just layers of acrylic cut, and then it appears like a, let's see, what do we got in here? It looks like a little tiny Raspberry Pi with a micro SD card and a USB Wi-Fi connector to it. And it's funny because I've seen this technique before. You can either use, what do they call it, WPS, to automatically connect it to your Wi-Fi, or a manual version. Since I have WPS turned off on my system, I'll have to use the manual. But essentially it has Wi-Fi connectivity to import your files. It comes with a little app that you can download in order to create your SLA. But that's kind of cute, don't you think?
Very cute.
Cute. So what else do you have? Oh, here's the actual everything in miniature. Here's your little what do you call it? Your bed. See
Yeah.
it? So it's just the tiny version. But the point I wanted to make is that there appears, and you can't see it, so let me jump back to this camera and then show you. In here, there is and you still can't see it, but there's like an LED array, like literally just a bunch of probably UV LEDs. Let's see how many is there. It's a
And those are what cure the material.
Yep, it's a 7x4. So it looks like a 20 LED array. And then that's what it is used to cure the material. So it just obviously turns them on. And yeah, they just look like regular LEDs. That seems like a very coarse. Oh, wait, is it possible? I'll have to look and investigate further. That may just, the fact is that may be the array, because I don't see anything else in here. Yeah, and then it has like a UV coated frame. So that's what actually creates the pattern that gets etched. So I can't see that the quality of these are going to be that good, but I will try it out this next week and see what comes up.
Awesome.
But it's
and report back to us next week.
Yeah, the Nano SLA printer. It's finally available.
Awesome.
So it's kind of fun, and if I remember, it was only like $300. So, you know, not like that's chump change for people, but it's still very reasonably priced if you want to get into it. In comparison, actually, I'm going to do it. Hang on a second, because I have it right here. So Brad, if you're watching, it's the little RP meets, it's like Godzilla. Can you see that, Chris?
No.
Chris? Oops, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So can you see the comparison? Here's the Nano and here's the little RP. Oh, actually,
No.
I didn't switch cameras. Let me do it. Here we go.
Oh, there we
Little
go. And the little RP is already little.
Exactly. It's small compared to some of the other SLAs, and then the Nano. So obviously, the little RP, I think, is better for creating not average, but small parts. So imagine what you can do with the Nano, little tiny parts. Now, keep in mind that the Nano is fully enclosed. It has its own system for exposing the resin, where the little RP, you still require a low-cost DLP projector. But I'm assuming the resolution will probably be better. All right, well, there you go. The unboxing of the Nano. Still there, Chris?
I'm here. Awesome.
Okay.
Well, thanks for sharing. Can't wait to hear more about it next week. See what you come up with on that thing.
Yeah, okay. So what do we got going on? Let me jump to that screen, and then we will call it quits for today. Let's see. We are in the month of July. Actually, we don't have anything else. I guess the next thing is August. We have something, the Additive Manufacturing 3D Printing Conference in Boston, and then 3D Print UAE in Dubai. So I guess people realize it's summer and people want to do something different. Maybe, maybe not. All right, so I think that's about it. What do you think, Chris? You think we can just kind of call it quits for today?
Yeah, we're running into pumpkin time. I'm close to turning into a pumpkin here.
So am I.
Thanks to all our listeners for joining us. It's been and thanks to Joe, who came on from Onshape.com. It's good to be back, and we will definitely see you next week on another episode of All Things 3D.
Bye.